What do you think of the event so far?
The event has been beautiful. The event has been quite interesting, quite lively, quite engaging. I'm happy to meet with participants from different parts of Africa, so it's quite engaging.
Very interesting, I think also because the world is currently going through a lot of changes, political change in many countries, but also geopolitical change, this whole America-China debate. And I think it's very important for Africa and African pension professionals to think about what are the long-term consequences of this and how the sort of new world order is potentially impacting the pension industry. And hence I think it's very good to have this debate and exchange of ideas, because I think complacency is the wrong strategy, especially when you have the burden of trust of managing pensions.
The event is actually a very organized event, very well organized event. I like the participation and I like the mix of the crowd from the different countries. I think it would actually be a very good event for many of the trustees. Given the discussions that you have, anyone in the pension sector should actually take up this event.
Wonderful, particularly the setting. English Point is a marvelous setting for this wonderful event, all about pensions, all about investments, and all about improvement.
I think the pension industry has been traditional in the way it's been run, in terms of the way it's been people approaching issues and how it's been done. I think what we need is courses or conferences or activities like this that makes them aware of what is out there and basically try to nudge them into that direction. Because I think there's been a lot of views, as presenters have mentioned time and again. A pension, you just contribute money, you don't know what's going on. You know, you don't look at it as part of your investment, you think it's gone until it's retirement. So people are starting to be aware of that.
I think the event is actually very, very key, more especially for the Board of Trustees, because those people, they actually look after the money of very important members of the schemes. So I think they need to be empowered.
I would say this has been quite an eye-opener. Rarely do we have specific tailored programs or training programs to basically address issues to do like in this specific issue.
Well, such an event is so very much important, being in the African region, where we have people who are crisscrossing the country, the borders. They're working in Zambia, but you're a Tanzanian or a Kenyan working. So for me, it was good to have the spectrum of all the people in Africa coming together and share such a platform.
What are you going to take back to South Africa, to your organization? And as a professional, what have you learned in this event?
So again, I mean, education is, we had a lot of presentation inside. It's very, very key. Yeah? So I think personally, I've also learned a lot from the event. And I'm also very happy to say, I think people that I've interacted with from after the presentation, they've said they've learned a lot. So it's always good to impart your knowledge, to enrich each other, so that we can actually eventually grow our continent. Because I believe that, we have to play a critical role in order to enlighten the continent and also to help them to grow in terms of making investment decisions.
So far, I like the discussion, my discussion that I presented on micropensions. I think it's very important to get into the informal economy, which is actually the driver in most of the developing countries in Africa.
So far, the different areas of expertise that were presented, but also I think the questions that came up. For example, in your interesting presentation, the questions of how to build a more robust pension system, right? But I suppose a pension system that is for Africa, made for Africa, and has an African spirit to it. And I think here the beauty is that the world is changing rapidly, but often also in the pension fund industry, many people are backward looking, right? They're still looking at the United Kingdom in the 1950s when the world increasingly is shifting, and increasingly it is other emerging markets that have the real growth and real potential, right?
In terms of taxation and gathering from other presenters and indeed the participants, there is need to look beyond just mega investments. Majorly, you're looking at the beneficiaries who are the core contributors to the bigger picture, and this is the bigger part of investment.
I think it's important for us to think outside the traditional investments and look at investments that can hedge against loss of members' funds, because the biggest issue here is to make sure that we preserve members' funds, but beyond preserving them, grow them. And I liked the presentation on the new gold. I liked the presentation also on Bitcoin. Yes, the market has been buzzing about Bitcoin, but until you understand it, I think it would be hard for people to take it up.
So KPMG, what we've done is we already have a global set of principles in terms of how pension schemes are managed. So for instance, there are some things that are internal to our profession that we have to admit to adhere to in the pension scheme. So for instance, if I audit a certain client, definitely I cannot be able to invest in that because I would have an indirect influence in terms of what I do.
The most important thing that I'm taking away from here is as pension houses, we need to be innovative. We don't need to lag behind. Like this conference looked at the modern ways of management, the modern ways of investments. For me, this is very, very important because we tend to lag behind, and then when we wake up, then maybe that type of investment is already saturated.
Would you recommend it to, this event to any other professional in this sector?
Oh yes, would I recommend it to any other professional? I definitely would recommend, particularly to the pension fund trustees, who are really the definers of the performances of their own schemes.
So this training is one of those trainings that you want to take up and see what are the new developments in the market, the global market, not just the Ugandan market, but the global market. So of course my team would be the first one to introduce it too. But I would also recommend this training to lawyers. Yeah, because nothing happens in this world without the legal backbone.
Definitely, I would recommend it to trustees, to regulators, to government policymakers, that they should attend and actually be speakers of the pension industry.
Yes, I would. Also because it's not just the material, but it's also what you learn from each other. I think by having a wide number of delegates from different areas of the pension fund industry, it often leads to stimulating debate.
Yes, I think we could start, these changes in the sector take a while. So if we start with, for instance, the big players who are already big asset, pension schemes, who are really at the forefront of such changes, they're always looking for new ways of doing things, looking for new ways of approaching that.
So I'm actually very much, so I've actually attended events similar to this. So I'm very much passionate about the investment industry and more in particular the savings industry. So any event of this nature, I will always try to make sure that I'm actually there to impart as much knowledge as I can to make sure that everyone is enriched in terms of understanding what's going on. So I will definitely, recommend that, in particular the Board of Trustees should attend this kind of event so that they actually understand the role that they're playing and how important it is, and also to understand what's happening in the investment world.
I would highly recommend anybody to attend such kind of forums, for by so doing, you then get together or gain internationally what are other practices doing, what is the practice locally. If you mirror that too, is there places or are there issues you need to improve on and build on?